We are so close. SpaceX has just conducted a static fire test with Booster 12, the main character of Starship Flight 5. Wow, the next world's biggest monster surging is on the brink. Let's take a closer look at this spectacular scene and discover the answer to the question, when will Flight 5 launch, in today's episode. Curious about where we are in the launch process? Just look at the hardware update. They never lie. On Tuesday, July 9, 2024, SpaceX moved the gigantic first-stage booster of its Starship rocket, Super Heavy, to the launch pad at Starbase, their coastal facility in South Texas. There was nothing secretive about it. SpaceX shared the event on social media, specifically posting 4 photos and a 30-second video on X. Flight 5, Super Heavy booster moved to the pad at Starbase, the company wrote in the accompanying post. The booster passed the nearly complete Star Factory on its way to the pad. What does this mean? A static fire. Just as predicted, on July 15th, SpaceX put on a spectacular show with Booster 12, a static fire test lasting for about 9 seconds. And they've shared some top-notch quality footage on X, capturing some fantastic angles. Let's examine this in more detail. Before the engines were ignited, we witnessed a spectacular sight, a massive amount of water gushing out at an incredible speed, completely obscuring the launch pad. This was the water deluge system doing its job, protecting the launch pad and everything around it from the intense heat and extreme pressure of the engine exhaust. Moments later, as the rocket engines roared to life, the water seemed to vanish in an instant. This happens because the exhaust from the engines is so powerful that it blasts the water away at a high speed. Additionally, the high temperatures cause some of the water to evaporate, making it disappear from view. When the show ended and the engines shut down, the massive amount of water reappeared, even though it had never actually stopped flowing. This really showcases the immense power of the engine exhaust. With 33 engines firing simultaneously, it's incredibly powerful. I am always amazed by this. They generate a total thrust of over 7,500 tons, equivalent to 16.8 million pounds. Elon Musk himself highlighted this impressive thrust in a tweet, comparing it to the Saturn V, more than double the power of the Saturn V moon rocket. Saturn V, a NASA icon, produced around 7.6 million pounds of thrust, or about 3,500 tons. So you can see, the power is astounding. It seems like this was a very successful static fire test. The engines ran for the full duration without an early shutdown and operated smoothly. All the rocket engines ignited properly and generated the expected thrust for several seconds before shutting down safely. There were no unexpected issues. It was very clean, tidy, and perfect. And a big applause for the ground support system. Their performance was outstanding as well. Next, let's talk a bit about Booster 12's companion, Ship 30. It also went through a static fire test earlier, although it appears some engines have been swapped out since then. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's another static fire test for the ship. However, Ship 30 is also nearing the end of its preparations, especially with the installation of new heat shield tiles and ablative layers. Recent photos show that most of S-30's components have received these upgrades, and I expect all related work on this system to be completed by the end of this week. You see, we are undeniably so close to Flight 5. But the point is, when will Flight 5 take place? Elon Musk just tweeted on July 6th that the flight is set to happen in 4 weeks, so perhaps August 3rd, 2024. But wait, as I've said, if you want to know the exact launch date, you've got to keep an eye on the rocket's hardware updates. You know what the most important sign is? It's when they install the flight termination system, or as I like to call it, the self-destruct button. They only put that on a couple of days before launch, so when you see it appear, you know it's go time. Let me walk you through the prep process. After static firing both stages, they'll stack Starship on top of Super Heavy. Then they'll detach and reattach multiple times to check everything thoroughly. Next up is the wet dress rehearsal. They'll fuel it up like it's the real deal, but no liftoff yet. The final step, they'll ditch it again, install that self-destruct button, and put it back together one last time. Then, Starship will be ready for its space adventure. So, I guess it's about a month from now, meaning Flight 5 could happen in mid-August. What about you? When do you think the next flight will be? Comment below. And well, you know what's going to make this flight extra special? We're going to witness the booster catch. Just imagine. The 146-meter-tall launch tower at Starbase will use its giant chopstick arms to catch Super Heavy as it returns. A spectacular sight. Sounds like science fiction, but it's actually very rocket science. Well, actually, you don't have to imagine. Earlier this month, SpaceX released a promotional video for the next Starship flight, showing how the booster will return to the same spot it launched from. Such a big leap. You still remember the first flight? Back then, Starship's 2 stages couldn't even separate. The flight ended after just 4 minutes with a controlled explosion. But Starship has come a long way since then. And the latest Flight 4 was a complete success. Both Super Heavy and the ship made it back to Earth, making spectacular splashdowns in the ocean as planned. This was the first time SpaceX could bring both stages of Starship back safely. The success of Flight 4 has laid the foundation for a bold decision decision by SpaceX to bring the booster back to land. This is the focal point of the upcoming flight, important and very dramatic, because once SpaceX achieves this goal, they will have reached the very first milestone in ushering in the reusable era of Starship. However, they need to prepare very thoroughly because one miscalculation could lead to dire consequences. If the launch tower suffers damage, they'll have to spend additional time and resources on infrastructure repairs, especially since they don't have a spare launch tower. SpaceX is ambitious, aiming for 25 Starship launches per year at Starbase, so it's crucial they avoid causing major damage to their only launch tower. Moreover, they would have to deal with a lot of administrative hurdles. You know, SpaceX has had some unpleasant experiences with the FAA in terms of mishap investigations and launch permits. If everything goes smooth, this flight not only tests the booster's ability to return, but also presents a valuable opportunity for SpaceX to test an upgraded heat shield on the ship or upper stage after re-entry heating damaged the vehicle during its descent on the previous flight last month. If you want to learn more about the booster catch and the upgrades for Flight 5, sometimes we should look around instead of just focusing on SpaceX. Well, talking about SpaceX's competitors is always my favorite part. While SpaceX is making remarkable strides, their biggest rival, Blue Origin's New Glenn, has been surprisingly quiet. Let's take a look back. What hardware test New Glenn has done? Just some cryogenic propellant loading for the first stage and a few fairing drop tests using a helicopter. And that was months ago. If they're not even ready for a static fire test, they're probably not ready to fly. What does this mean? Most likely they'll have to postpone their scheduled missions. If Blue Origin can't launch before December 31st this year, they'll face significant challenges in competing for lucrative military launch contracts from the Pentagon, an achievement that would bolster their credibility. That's quite a bit of pressure. As a space enthusiast, I truly hope Blue Origin can break through faster. Because, you know, a new race would make this industry much more exciting, rather than everyone just focusing on Starship. SpaceX is advancing at a lightning pace. They are building a second launch tower at Starbase at an incredible speed. And that's not all. They also plan to launch up to 44 Starships per year from LC-39A at Kennedy Space Center, along with 76 annual launches from SLC-37B. That totals 145 Starship launches each year. That number is truly staggering. To support this launch rate, in the next few years, they aim to have a total of 4 Starship launch pads in both Texas and Florida, an unprecedented expansion for any organization in the industry. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.